Thank you, Blaine, for doing this for me today. um, so, this is for my writing about people interview in class, and I wanted to interview you because you had told me that you were adopted, and you had told me some things about that in previous conversations. So, let's start with why you were adopted.
Okay, yeah. When my mom used to work for Citibank for a while, and she knew she always wanted to get out of like the corporate world and settle down and have a family, but she wasn't married, and she was older for a starting parent, and since she was like 13, she always knew she wanted to have a family, um, and she always knew that adopting was an option. Like um, she knew that it was something that people did, but she didn't necessarily know if it was what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And because of her circumstance, because she wasn't married, because um, she wasn't in like the classic like family, starting family, I guess situation. She just knew that she was going to have a child, but in an unconventional way. So she decided that she was just going to adopt, and she did some research. She knew that they had at the time they had this law in China where you can only have one child.
Yeah.
And usually more often than not, the parents who were in China, they had to, since they can only have one kid, they would most likely try for a boy, and the girls would be put up for adoption because they couldn't work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that explains how and when and where. Yeah.
Do you ever feel like a disconnect because you're not with your actual mother? Or do you ever are you ever curious about who she is? And
Absolutely, totally. It was like when I was little, I used to think, no, I don't really care because, well, my mom's my mom, and they tell you in adoption class, you don't get classes on being adopted, but like they have a lot of like, I went to a private school,
yeah.
So they had a lot of accommodating like resources. Like they had programs for kids who had two parents. They had programs for kids whose parents were separated. So it's like they put all these kids together, and hopefully they would have this community. So in the community that I was in was for like adopted kids.
Yeah.
And they were like, all right, so who wishes that they like had some sort of communication with their birth parents? And I was like, oh, I don't want that because can't have it anyway, so why think about it? But
yeah,
of course you think about that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like any adopted kid who says that they're not, they're just either they are in denial or they just aren't mature enough. And I totally wasn't mature enough. I was like 10 years old.
Yeah, that's crazy. I always thought it'd be so cool from movies to like be adopted.
It's literally not.
Yeah, well, it's also kind of like silly, a silly wish because
yeah, it's weird.
I don't know. I like the thought of like having like another life.
Oh,
in my life, but
I used to joke around that like, I mean, my mom, she's white, and we're obviously not like blood related. So when people see us like walking down the street, they give some weird looks, and I would just stare right back at them, and I still do that. It's really funny. People have asked me like definitely where I'm from, and before when I was little, I'd give like real answers, but now I give ridiculous answers. I told someone that I was from like a pumpkin patch or something.
What?
Just to mess with them. Yeah, because I just thought that like, to me it was a dumb question, just because I was like, well, obviously I'm adopted, but it's obvious for me. It's not necessarily obvious for everyone else. So yeah. I give real answers now, like I'm not from a pumpkin patch.
So you're telling me that there's like a problem with how, because you were born in China, with legally being allowed to be here with Donald Trump and his immigration laws?
Yeah, they're okay. So when I was adopted, basically from what I know, there was about 6 months. There was within like a year that there's this law made that was like any international adoption, the child is automatically a citizen. no matter what. But that was 6 months after I was adopted, and so yeah, I am on record a full citizen. I have a U.S. passport. I have a social security number. I can
Work.
yeah, I can work here. I have worked here and gotten paid for it, and it was great. But there was this little kind of hiccup in my paperwork that the adoption agency told my mom, hey, don't worry about it until college. And then because of what's kind of going on now, Homeland Security called my mom, and they were like, hey, you need to like give us a bunch of money and paperwork like now, later. And since the government shut down, I was supposed to call in and say like, hey, when's the paperwork going to be done? And my case was still pending, even though we technically started. Basically, the whole reason why we started doing paperwork in the first place was because I needed to fill out the FAFSA, and my FAFSA never went through. And yeah, just because on their papers I am a legal resident alien, which is funny because technically like I'm an alien, but like no. Yeah, I just thought it was really cool until I realized that the FAFSA was just coming back like you need to send in your passport, and I did, and they were like, we don't believe you. And I was like, well, can't do anything about that.
I am me.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I thought that it was actually really funny because you know how like when you fill out paperwork for like when you take state tests, you have to put like you're a citizen.
Yeah.
So I've always just put in that I was a citizen, and I guess I've just been lying this whole time because I didn't know any different, and my mom thought that I was a full citizen, and we had no idea until I had to fill out the FAFSA that this was like a problem. And so now we're just kind of waiting to see what's up. I'm guessing that it's taking so long because a bunch of other people are also going through this.
Yeah.
Because there was an influx of international adoptions. Sort of because of the like law in China, but yeah, people are just adopting way more than they used to, and it's all the paperwork is just crazy. So I'm guessing it's just taking them so long because of the sheer amount of people that are actually doing the paperwork.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So do you know anything about like your family's history, like your real family's history? And
no, I don't. It's really funny because a lot of people know a lot. There's this one girl who I knew who's like a close family friend, and she was from Guatemala, and they had a picture of her birth mom, and they look strikingly similar. And like obviously they look strikingly similar, but it's like you've never met this person and you look like them. It's crazy. I don't know my story. A lot of people who were in the orphanage that I was in, we have no idea where we're from. There's one girl who knew 100% sure that her birth parents left her at like a medicine factory, and then they brought her to the orphanage, but that's as far as they know. So I don't even remember which person that was out of all the people that I was adopted with. No idea who it is. I kind of forget.
So like, do you even know your mom's like name or anything?
No.
Oh, that is crazy.
I know, right?
I would do one of those like blood tests.
The thing is, I could do that.
Yeah.
It would just be really expensive. Also, I think since most likely my biological parents would be off the grid. Like they just because of like the population and how big China is, I think it would just, I don't think anything would show up.
Interesting. And then do you think that being adopted has impacted like your storytelling or like film perspective in any way, shape, or form?
That is such a good question. I think that it's made me more empathetic because like you never know what someone's going through, what someone's like history is, and I think it's made me more. I don't know. I'm not saying that people who aren't adopted aren't good storytellers. Obviously, people who are adopted, people who aren't adopted, amazing storytellers. I do think that you it forces you to think about yourself more. You also have to go through a lot, especially if like you're a different race than your adoptive parent. Like my mom, she's really white. I'm not. And I don't know. She gets a lot of questions that are a lot of like rude questions from people that should not be asked. Like I'm pretty sure someone asked me, like when I was like 10 years old, they were like, "Does your mom actually love you?" And I was like, why would you ask me that? And it was just ignorance. Like you have to deal with a lot of ignorance, especially if you don't look like your adoptive parent.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's made me more empathetic, but there are other ways to get there, I think. I don't think you have to necessarily be adopted to be an empathetic person. Like a lot of the people that, I don't really know that many adopted people. I do know a lot of adopted people in New York, just because population is more people,
and
more likely.
With them.
Yeah. But, I mean, here, I know a lot of people who aren't adopted, and they seem really empathetic and amazing storytellers.
I think that's what makes us art students.
Oh, yeah. But then again, I've met some really terrible adopted people. Like, there are just some people who just aren't nice.
There are some people who just really struggle with, like, different things about it, but...
Yeah. I think I've handled it decently well, but that's also because my mom is just kind and knows what's up, so...
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. What would scare me more is if my mom didn't tell me, is if, like...
Oh, and you found out later?
I've heard horror stories.